unfolded, and each person, as Debbie and Akeisha and Joy and I have dreamed, and then to see each of you guys here. And I agree, Akeisha, it's like practicum, which is happening. We have our first one next month. Can you believe that? Like, practicum's really happening. So, but I want to just take a moment and think about each one of you. Each one of you have a story that has led you here to tonight, that has led you, even back it up, that led you to homeschooling. Before that, led you to having kids. Before that, you know, having, getting married, right? Like these different events that happened in your life. So each of you are bringing a story here tonight. And each of these ladies that are on the panel here with me tonight, they have their story, their why. And so some of these questions that have come up, that you're going to hear this evening, and questions that you may have come from different things that have happened in each one of our stories. But I want you to take a moment and go back to that story that God has for you. Because your story is different than my story, it's different than Debbie's story, right? Different than Keisha's story. So as you are listening, I want you to have that grace, because God might not be calling your family to a certain pathway. Or He might be asking you to take a different journey. So give yourself that grace and pause and think through, is this part of what our story is for our family? As we look at this vision for high school and what happens even beyond high school. So we're going to take a moment and pray, but I want you guys to think about that space that you're in. And each story is different, each story is unique, and you'll hear a different collection of answers from people, from these ladies from this panel. So let's pray, and let's think about that as we meet tonight. So Father, thank you. I thank you so much for this community. I thank you for these brothers and sisters that are gathered here this evening. And as we look at high school, what does high school look like in CC? And as we share the vision of what CC, what is possible in CC for high school, we just pray for each and every family that you would go ahead of them and before them, and behind them, Lord, as they are making decisions, is what they are looking for their family. Part of what we're sharing tonight, Lord. So thank you for this time, and thank you for all these leaders. Thank you for this church that has opened their doors to us. And we just pray for a sweet indwelling with you, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. And I'm going to pass it over to Debbie.
It's my privilege to introduce the panel to you. These women have been my friends, my mentors for years. These women are godly women. They have so much wisdom, and I cannot wait for you to hear what they have to share. Gina Bell is from Coconut Creek. She has been a Challenge 2 director. Next year she will be a Challenge A director. 3 of her kids, her boys, have all graduated, and she has 1 daughter left who will be Challenge A next year. Robin is from Plantation East, which is where I'm from. She's been our Foundations and Essentials director for, was it 9 years?
8 years.
8 years, and then this year she graduated, and she became our Challenge 2 director.
Yeah.
She has 5 kids, and she is the parent of a self-employed CC graduate, and she has 3 challenge students right now. Tammy Donnelly has been the Pines F&E director for how many years?
7.
7 years, and she is graduating and will be Challenge 2 next year, right? 1 or 2. She's going to be doing something. And she's the parent of 3 beautiful girls, and she's also been homeschooling her nephew who has some special needs, and she'll be talking a little bit about that this evening. Amber Diaz is an Foundations Essentials director. How many years?
Just finished 6 years.
6 years
And
in
graduating.
Plantation West. Not graduating yet.
I'm graduating.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you are?
I am.
I didn't know. She's graduating too. Challenge A. All right. Parent of 5 children, and 3 are currently in upper challenges. Elizabeth Barrett is from Plantation East. She is our Challenge 4 director this year. She is the owner of Sterling Wealth Advisors. She's a single mom. Her son Sterling was just accepted to the Liberty Honors Program with scholarships, so eager to hear her story tonight. Rachel Thompson, she is our area representative, and that just means she helps those of us who are support representatives like me and Akeisha and Joy know how to do our jobs. But she's also the parent of 3, and her oldest son is in Challenge 3 and doing CC+, and you'll hear from him tonight as well on the kids panel. Lysandra Russell, West Broward F&E Director for how many years? 10 years. And she is graduating too, and you will be doing Challenge 4 next year. Parent of 3 students, 2 of her students are CC graduates with academic and athletic scholarships, and her daughter Taylor is here tonight, and she will also speak on the panel. I'll introduce Taylor in her own right later. Leah, I'm going to butcher her last name. Farquharson? Farquharson. Yeah. Leah is really a wonderful SR. I think I left you out in all those SRs. From West Broward. She is also a Challenge 1 director, has 2 kids, 1 is graduated and 1 is in Challenge. And she is a wealth of information. So very happy to have all of you here. So we are 7:11. I'm 1 minute past my deadline. We are going to stick to it. If you have questions, please write them down. And I just lost my mic. I'll talk really loudly. Okay, I'm trying. Here, you turn it off and on for me while I'm talking loudly. So, if you have any questions, write it down, because chances are really good that somebody's going to cover your question in the questions that we have. If they don't cover it by the end of the night, then raise your hand and ask it. We're going to start with Gina. First question is, why would I choose to homeschool high school with CC?
All right, here comes the good, the bad, and the ugly, or funny. Why did you choose to homeschool high school with CC? For my husband and I, one of the areas that caught our attention was the mission statement from the beginning of CC, to know God and to make it known. But there's more. Each challenge year has at least one amazing project. Challenge A has science fair, Challenge B, mock trial, Challenge 1, the economics project looking into the future, Challenge 2, biology with lab from a biblical perspective, which allows to discuss the fallacy of macroevolution. Challenge 3, chemistry, poetry, Shakespeare, and Challenge 4, the senior thesis presentation. Each one of these events is amazing, and I didn't even mention debate, studying in Challenge 1, and there's even more. But tonight I want to share our experience with my oldest son's mock trial. The judge in a courtroom in Miami was a young woman, and at the end of the trial, she began to cry in front of all of us, lawyers, security, students, parents. Then she explained that she was pregnant. She continued saying that working as a judge in Miami allowed her to see the worst of people. Seeing our group of students doing the right thing gave her hope for her baby. Jesus said to his disciples, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." There are no perfect programs, organizations, or people. But if God is leading you to choose to homeschool high school with CC, rest assured that He is leading you in a good path.
We'll share.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, that was beautifully said. Robin, what if my student isn't college bound? Why would you bother with such a rigorous curriculum?
Well, I'm being asked this question because our 20-year-old, Veronica, is a CC graduate, and she's currently home working on establishing her own business. And Gina kind of stole my thunder a little bit of the CC motto, and to know God and to make Him known. And if I were to ask all of you moms and dads that are in here, what you really want for your child, even before CC, I would have said, I want my children to know the Lord, and I want them to serve Him in a big way and to make an impact. And that's exactly what we get to do in CC. And this scope and sequence in the challenge guide is the other main reason why anybody should be doing CC, because of what it offers our kiddos. I chose CC for my students because it is a skill-based program, and that was very important to me once I saw that we're honing skills. I especially love that CC chooses things like debate, Latin, poetry, art, music, things that could even be optional, and they were for me in high school. I didn't choose debate because I chose something else. And our students all get to have these things chosen for them, and it provides such a well-rounded education to our students, whether they go to university, start their own business, enter a trade profession, or become a mom. We should never be done with learning, and CC provides a strong foundation for God to continue to build upon. And since my daughter Veronica is home right now with us, I have the pleasure of watching her pick up books like Mere Christianity, which is a Challenge 4 book, on her own, just to read again at her own pace for her own reasons, just because. And I get to watch her view things in the news, in current events, through the eyes of a biblical worldview with strong critical thinking skills. She keeps on learning for the love of learning, and I believe that CC played a huge part in that inspiration. So it's just been a beautiful thing to see that everything that CC does for our high school students and prepares them for, they use no matter what God is calling them to do.
Thank you, Robin. Tammy. What is so funny?
I don't have a speech prepared.
I'm out of here. Tammy, I have never ever known you to be short on words.
Eloquent words, I don't know. Okay.
So Tammy. Now Tammy, I've been in her living room and I've been crying, and she's counseled me, and because I've got one that's a special needs kid. So Tammy, can my special needs student participate in challenge?
I would say from experience that your child not only can participate, but can shine and excel. It has been a beautiful thing. I'm doing something I swore I would never do. I'm a teacher by trade. I promised I would never ever homeschool my children, never. Anyway, the first year that I decided to pull my kindergarten first grader, I was going to pull them the following year, my sister approached me and she's like, oh my gosh, will you teach Stephen? And I was like, I'm like, no, if I'm going to screw up anybody's kids, it's going to be my kids. Anyway, and I went to practicum the following year, and at practicum, it was just, Stephen was so much on my heart that he needed to come join our program. So Stephen joined us, he would have been technically a third or fourth grader. Anyway, he and Diane will be going into Challenge 4 next year. And it has been amazing. I have watched at my dining room table a firstborn girl who is the overachiever, the pleaser, the wants it done right, very hard critical on herself. And a boy who sits there and is extremely literal and very good at Latin, we found out. He excels at public speaking and things like that. And I have watched how we've opened up the same guide, and I've been able to school both of them for years. And it's not like, oh, he's just kind of getting along. We've found ways to take the curriculum and use it so he can understand it. So some of the literature He can read it beautifully. Yeah, I mean, he actually, if you heard him read, it's amazing, but he doesn't comprehend a lot of it. So we've had to go to like Cliff Notes and things like that, where we can break things down into smaller pieces. He still does his LTW, his Lost Tools of Learning. At the beginning in Challenge A and B, we were taking Lost Tools of Writing, and we were kind of reading along with, I should have brought the book that has the stories and you can ask the questions and that kind of stuff.
Where's that spoken?
Thank you very much. Words Aptly Spoken. I would work through that, but then still at times to do an LTW, he wasn't quite there. So we did things kind of like LTWs as to why you need a list to go to the grocery store. What would be, I had CC today and a debate, and so I'm like, okay, so the affirmative and the negative and the interesting, the anti-chart, right, but the affirmative, the negative, interesting. So we took simple topics that he could understand and grasp, and we started that way. But I will say, he is on spectrum, but what's been amazing about the program is the program, to me, educationally speaking, it focuses and takes children through different skills to learn to use the exact word, right? The correct word. No matter if it's Latin, if they're writing something, if they're reading something, if they're debating something, it's taking their language and not do what I do, where I take 19 sentences to say one thing, right? But to get them to think clearly, to use the proper vocabulary, and to be concise in their speech. And so it's taken somebody who, a lot of times when they say with their brain, it's wired a little differently, it's helped him figure out ways of organizing thought. And that's been amazing. And so he participates in poetry and his, like I said, if you give him something prepared that he's written, he stands up, he excels. If you're playing Latin games, you want Stephen with him because he has a memorization of I don't know what, and he reads Latin beautifully. But there's been things that's amazing about the program is in a classroom that they're all together all day, there'll be certain ones that'll excel at certain places. And your children with learning disabilities will have, and they'll find their moments to shine. And not because you're being patronizing to them, but honestly, they're good. And what's amazing is the program with challenges, they come in at the end of their week. So they're coming in with something already done. They know what they've got and they know what they have to share. And so it gives them a lot of confidence to know that they're walking in already having something kind of tucked away that they're going to be able to share. And then it gives them a little bit of confidence to then engage in a lot of the conversation. So I would say you can do it with your, what are you going to do? Put them out there in regular education? So they sit there and they just pass them along? No. This is amazing. It's an amazing program for kids with special needs. Good job.
Amber, so what are different ways to keep up with grading my students' work? Because now in Challenge, grades are going to start mattering, and now I'm the teacher, and that's a little scary. How do you handle that?
So I don't do anything without my team. So I'm going to call 3 of my team to sit right here because we brought some things to show you. Yeah. So in 4th grade, with these are 3 of my children. I have 2 younger ones as well. But in 4th grade, we started with math, and I would sit next to them and model for them. Sometimes I was making the notes, but then it transitioned to them making the notes. And we would go through the math book, and they would learn what it was to take notes thoroughly. And we would start off by saying, write the bold terms or draw a picture. And do you understand what that means? And if you don't, let's talk about it, and then you write what you do understand. And it grew from 4th grade to junior, which she's challenge 3, and then these 2 are, they're in 9th grade, which is challenge 1. So it's now grown into this team effort where I have 5 kids, so I'm just gonna be honest, I tell all my worst stories. I don't have time to hold everyone's hand in my house. I simply don't. And so there are very clear expectations about what is to be done in our home, and they hold the weight of it as well. And so what we do is we finish all subjects. We finish every lesson in the math book. we read the entire science book, we do all the things. And they are required, they know that I can be held accountable, I can be audited, and someone can ask to see proof of these grades that I am saying my children have a 4.0. So I have them do every single test. And so we brought some things, and they're gonna be on the panel, I think, and you can ask them about this, but in a nutshell, they will read the chapter that they're supposed to read according to the guide. They will take notes, and if you wanna open up your stuff, they have one notebook that keeps notes, but then they have a separate notebook that keeps tests. And sometimes they grade their tests. And this is what we do. I tell them, we homeschool. There's no reason why we should move on if you don't understand. You need to be getting an A. If there's something that you don't know, you need to go back and study it. The goal is that they know it, right? So sometimes they will take a test, and again, you can ask them about this specifically, but maybe you could just hold something up. They will take the test. If there's something that they don't know, they go back and we learn it, retake the note, and their tests are graded, and they have a percentage and a grade on it. So I think one of them has physical science, another one has economics, just hold it up, and chemistry. So this is real life. I'm very transparent. I tell all my war stories. This is how we roll. This is how I keep grades. And so when I create that transcript, if I ever get audited, when I have that at the end, when I'm collecting grades, when I'm collecting big papers and things like that, they will all be graded. They will all have a scale associated with them.
Okay, I'm going to pause just for a second, and I want to see, I'm winging this. Does anybody else grade a different way? That's willing to admit it, because that was really amazing, and I don't grade that way. Anybody else? Leah, you want to talk?
Yeah, I think we all sort of grade a little bit differently, but I think one of the things that CC encourages that I'm going to circle back to that Amber said is when you homeschool, there's no reason you shouldn't be getting an A. And in the school system, they call that teaching to mastery, as Mrs. Russell here likes to remind us in our little community. That's teaching to mastery. And when you're teaching your student to mastery, I go through, because I only have one, Amber. My other one's graduated. But I still have a stack of math lessons I'm behind on that I brought with me if I was going to be sitting, to quietly walk through while others were doing this. But I have, I do include things like, yes, you have to do your test, and yes, your daily work is graded, but I'll mark the ones that he got incorrect on his math lesson, and I'll hand it back to him and say, hey, go circle back, look at this problem again. Either you miscopied or you misunderstood how it was supposed to be executed. If you can't get it, come back to me. And then we'll have a conversation and we'll walk through. We might use some supplementary things like the teaching tapes from Saxon or things like that, where it's extra additional resources that CC gives us. I still sort of follow through with that Andrew Pudawa's either A, it's accepted, like it's done, right? Or I, it's incomplete. You have your checklist of things, mark off your checklist, and then we work to mastery on including rhetorical devices and advancing your methods and everything as you go. So I still sit regularly with my student weekly, so.
I do, I guess, a hybrid of what these ladies do. And one of the things that I am almost a slave to is progress reports from the director, also feedback from the students as they get into upper level challenges. They will be, graded is not the right word, but they will be assessed by their peers and they will be assessed by their director. So it is a hodgepodge of stuff, but the beautiful part is in math, it's very objective, it's, you got it right or wrong. But the ones that are incorrect, my kids will get a grade for the math right off the bat. So if you're getting a 60%, that's not your final grade. We're going to take the ones that you did incorrectly, I'm going to allow you an opportunity to do them again. If you're still getting them wrong, we're now doing them together. You will get 50% credit for those problems that you do in a math test. For your math, the math lessons, those should always be at 100%. So if you're doing the math on that, my students are getting A's in math because it's all about teaching to mastery. There's no point in putting a C, D, or F on a report card. It means that they don't know what they're doing. So that's how I've graded everything that I've done, even with IEW, LTW, they all have rubrics. But I'm also wanting to hear, how are you delivering that paper? What kind of discussions are you having with your peers? Do they have value and weight based on what we have sat and discussed, what you're reading? So I also, particularly because my first two knew that they wanted to go to university. And so one of the things that I exposed them to was the concept of a grading scale, and that class participation is a big deal in college. And so for me, I wanted to train them in that. So that's part of what I've added.
Thank you, that was hopeful for me. You know, we all need a little bit of encouragement sometimes. All of us. So, Elizabeth. Now I'm going to give Elizabeth a little bit of extra time. I told her she's one of my special speakers. I love Elizabeth. Elizabeth, she is our Challenge 4 director. I have to tell you, she directed for us very reluctantly this last year. So Elizabeth, why would a parent choose to direct? And why did you choose to direct? And is it really doable? And you have to understand, Elizabeth is a single mom. She owns her own business. How many people work for you?
6.
Okay, she's really busy. I will let you tell the rest of your story.
You guessed it. So the question, why would a parent choose to direct? I can only speak to why I chose to direct, obviously, and not anyone else. And first, I would say a call out to Robin Bird. I am in what I think is the sweetest community on earth. And Robin started that community, and we were a part of that. This is our 8th year. So it kind of came down to, we either had to leave our community or I had to step up. That was part of it. Even with being a single mom and running a business, I was more able to step up than the other parents that were in our classroom, and I knew that. So with lots of prayer and lots of reorganizing and some back and forth, I will admit, I decided to direct. I have a big heart for our community. I have been what I would call a consumer of our community for many years, and I was aware of that. These communities take a lot of work. Directors put a lot of time in. It is a partly volunteer position, just understand that. Like, your heart has to be there. And I had a lot of people that I loved very much step in, and I was just the caboose on this train. But this train would not have gotten to the graduation station without a lot of hearts and people stepping up. So I am one piece to that, and I have a big heart of gratitude for all of those that rescued us, our sweet class, many, many times. So, you know, in discussing it with my son, who's here on the first row, Sterling, one of the concerns, and I say this because as a mom of a son, and sometimes this is an issue with moms in particular who direct, is how it might impact the relationship they have with the student if that student's in the class. So that was a concern that he had, and I understood it. He had seen where that can sometimes go sideways, quite frankly, right? So I needed to make sure it was a commitment on my part that my doing that would not impact my relationship with Sterling. Otherwise, really, what have I gained? Not much. nothing. So that's been a very conscious decision on my part, and I have found it a privilege to direct. I wouldn't trade this year for anything. I have loved my time in the classroom. I've loved the deep conversations that we've had. Challenge 4 is amazing. I can only speak to that. The integration of all the strands, the fact that we're talking through mere Christianity and having different viewpoints and being respectful of that. And I want to create a very safe environment. I do have a master's degree in counseling psychology. So I know that if you create safety and that amazing things can happen in the classroom. And I wanted that to be the case with these precious 3 students. And then the other thing I would say, and this is kind of funny, years ago, I'm an includer, so I do things with lots of people. And my family always comes to my house. I'm the house. And so I was hosting my brother and his family. He has 4 kids. He's a pastor. And I got up in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. And there was a book on my kitchen table. And it was Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. And I thought, well, there's a subtle hint. Really? They just left it out like that for me to find? And no, it's a church book. But I read it, and that was early. Sterling was like 10. But the gist of the book is be very intentional as you go into the teenage years in particular about who are going to be the adults that you want to be influencing your children. And adults that when they don't want to come to the parent, they'll go somewhere else, but you're okay with that, and you never even need to know what the conversation was, because you know that person's heart, and you know that they spoke words that you would want spoken, right? And that I can do that for, hopefully, these parents that have trusted me with their children. You know, we've had some very vulnerable and hard conversations, and they trust me to have those conversations with their students. And I think that's part of what community gives us. I mean, I've said many times, there's not a mom that I wouldn't trust, you know, with my son and a family. We get to know the whole family. Like, that's so unusual, right, in CC. You don't get that in any kind of school setting. Moving on to, is it doable? I will say the psychology degree, perhaps, it's all about mindset, I think, partly. I had to do a lot of reframing. I certainly had to do some restructuring. I do own my own business, so I have some autonomy there. And I was able to schedule some things in the summer and the fall and make some concessions. I also was able to, you know, on the positive side, my son stepped in to help more. You know, he took on more chores at the house, which is helpful. And I think that was a big help. If I did this, I wanted to do it well. So I've tried to have lots of activities for my seniors and talk to them about what they wanted their senior year to look like. Our community will have our first graduation on April 23rd, so we're excited about that. We would invite anyone that wants to come to the graduation and celebrate with us. I hope it will be an encouragement to anybody to kind of see what the finish line, so to speak, looks like. It does happen. We just, again, I'm saying these things hopefully to encourage people in the audience, but we did our senior trip, I'll call it, last week actually, to Liberty University. And all 3 families went. We had a great time. And I told Robin on the ride here, I said, I have no idea if these students will go to Liberty. That's up to lots of situations and all of that. But I wanted to give them a mindset of what opportunities are out there and what things could be for them. All of my students in my class are very capable students that certainly could go to college if that's something they feel God leading them to. And, you know, my son is going to go to Liberty in the fall. for lots of reasons. It checked a lot of boxes for us. But even if, having done college tours, I would say Liberty's a good school to start with because it teaches you how to tour colleges. They do such a good job and such a thorough job. It's a 3-day, process, and it's a lot to get your head around, but then you can take that framework and overlay it to other colleges that you're looking at. We did College for the Weekend. They have the next one in September and another one in November. And then the other thing I would say is just to be intentional about whatever trade-offs that you're going to make if you do choose to direct. And protect your, I call them self-care rocks. Debbie and I have this because I'm a morning person, because my morning time is my time. And so I try to protect that pretty strongly, because if I don't have that, then I don't show up at my best. So I would encourage anyone, I know that it probably feels like you don't have the capacity, but I do feel like God can provide that if that's what you feel in your heart you should do.
Elizabeth, can I get you to talk just a little bit longer? Because I've heard you speak about the financial choice to do CC in high school as a financial planner. Can you give us a little piece of that?
Sure. So I'm a financial advisor, and my clients are fairly wealthy. I have fairly wealthy clients. And I say that because many of my clients are paying $30,000 to $50,000 a year for private school. I've got clients with children in American Heritage, for example. That tuition is $30,000 a year. One doctor client of mine asked me, because his son is the same age as Sterling's, what are you doing for education? And I said, I'm homeschooling, and he joked, can I drop my son off? I'm like, no. And we would, when I meet with this client, I'll just use him as an example, we would share different things about what the college process was looking like. American Heritage is very, very, they go real in on the SAT prep and put a lot of focus on that and everything else. And his son is now in college at a 4-year institution, getting a degree that you don't need a degree for what he's going to do. But so be it, I chose with Sterling to do CC+. I can put a plug in for that. I've told Rachel and Lysandra. I'm a big fan of CC+. It allowed Sterling, he will have, I think, 27 credit hours when he goes to Liberty that have transferred in. So in essence, that saved a year of college expense. And I think the cost on those CC+ classes of $500 for 3 credits or so, let's say it was $4,500. And if you figure first year college, $25,000, let's say room and board all in, that's a pretty good ROI, let's call it. And it helps with that whole, we were talking about grading and all of that. If you're trying to kind of let the rope out of independence with your child, it's a great way to do that. And then if they miss a class or they miss an assignment, it's at home. You're here. You're not blocked out of all of that like you are on a college campus where, you're not privy to that anymore once they turn 18. So I really feel like it was the best education for my son. And I think not only academically, because it takes the lid off, so to speak. I mean, they really can go as high as they want. They can learn, they can read more books. It's the Montessori concept, so to speak. But it's also the whole person. Like I said, if I've said to him once, I've said it a million times, I don't homeschool you for your head. I homeschool you for your heart. And that, the character and the community piece, is the beautiful piece of CC, and the fact that it's academic rigor is worship, right? We're to worship and do our best. And so, I think I'm done.
Thank you. You can pass that to Rachel. But now y'all see why I wanted her to talk. Rachel, what is the difference between CC Plus and dual enrollment?
All right, great question. I get this all the time. And Miss Elizabeth over here has given us a beautiful segue over to CC Plus. No, it's perfect. It is perfect. So I want us to use one of our tools. Let's define some things, right? So when we hear the word dual, what comes to mind? And you can call it out. Two. Right, yeah, two. All right, when you hear con, not like a con artist, but con, my Latin people, my Latin speakers, my Spanish speakers, right? With, right? With, yeah. So if we think of dual enrollment as two, meaning two curriculums, and then we look at concurrent enrollment, that is with what you are currently doing, right? So we have one curriculum. So in classical conversations, we are using our curriculum, right? And then there are classes, as Elizabeth has shared and Sterling has partaken in, that go along with our curriculum. And so we are not adding a second curriculum on top of what we are already doing. And some things that will differentiate it again, you know, we're gonna compare them now, right? So we've got the two, we've got the one, two curriculums, we're following the one curriculum. More and more Christian colleges are coming into the dual enrollment scene, but as a whole, you might look at the dual enrollment option as more secular, whereas our option within CC Plus with the concurrent enrollment, we have believers that are assessors with degrees in higher education. And oftentimes with dual enrollment, it could be online. It might be away from, it might be out in the actual college or university. With what we do in CC, it's very little online. The majority of what takes place in our CC Plus is what we are already doing in our home during those 6 days of the week that we have our children, and then that one day that we are in community together, wrestling with those. So it doesn't take away from that triangle. You've all seen the triangle, I'm sure, in our catalogs and in our different curriculum and guides, but the parent, the director, and the child, it doesn't replace that. So, and I love what you had said about with Sterling, you know, or just in general, like if your child misses something, right? It's okay, they're still at home with you. And when we first embarked on CC Plus, we didn't know how it was gonna go. You know, we're like, let's just give it a shot. But we figured it was in a very safe place, right? Wyatt is still under our roof, and we can walk with him, because it was a long time ago that we were in college, and we didn't have these things where you posted stuff online. Like, what is that? Like, you had to go into your class, hand in your paper, you know, like, you didn't submit the way you did. So it was a learning curve for us, old people, right? That we've never had to do stuff like that. So, and it has been such a blessing, because what he is submitting to those professors, it is an outpouring of what we have already wrestled with as a family, in community. There are a few things that we might go a little bit deeper in for the assignment, but for the most part, it stays right there with the challenge guide. So again, it's that one curriculum and keeping that unit. The leaders at Southeastern, this particular year, we've been with Southeastern University since 2015. And this particular year, Southeastern is our only partner within the universities. We've had some other partners with us, but they love our students, like, love them. And I have heard several leaders from Southeastern say, we partner with you all because we want your children to stay through Challenge 4. That's why they do what they do with us. They want us to stay and get to that, get to where it is the cherry on top, right? So that's sometimes what we say, right? Like, that's where that pivotal moment of challenge for our senior thesis. So they want us to say. And in the catalog, I love this. This is on page 70. So you can see there's a whole section on, what is CC Plus, and you can find more information, classicalconversationsplus.com. There's a lot more information on there and the different courses. We do start in Challenge 2, Challenge 3, and Challenge 4. But something that we said in the catalog here, keep your vision for homeschooling. Hold on to the advantages of a local Christian mentor and small classes. Stay with our familiar curated curriculum. Keep building on the Christian classical education you began. And I love this part. They even think about us as parents. And don't forget, we also offer college credit opportunities for homeschooling parents who are teaching our curated curriculum at home. So not only are they pouring into our students, but they're pouring into the whole family, because there's so many opportunities for us. We are in the trenches. We are leading these conversations at home with our kids, right? We might be the mentor in the community leading that class, or the parent that is filling in when one of the directors needs to step out, when maybe they're sick or on vacation with their family, right? We are doing this. And so as parents, they're also seeing the wealth of knowledge of what we are doing as we're reclaiming 2 educations. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's been a beautiful experience to do CC Plus, that concurrent enrollment, doing it with what we are already doing. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch our son as he is learning those ropes. And like I said, in a safe place, because there's a whole lot of new. And, and as we were talking about grading, there's different things for each professor. Some professors say no more than 10% more words. And that's why he doesn't like it when he has a maximum number of words. He's got a really great, he likes this professor where it's like, I don't care what your max is. He's like, sweet. And we're like, okay. But he's learning. Yes, there are standards that we have in our home. We have standards within community. But then you are going to learn each of your professors. And you're going to learn what really resonates with them. And then other things. And the feedback, that's another really cool thing, because with dual enrollment, we're getting grades. Bam, there's your grade. At the end during your course, right, as you enroll with CC Plus, you do receive grades, right? But I want us to think of that word assessment. We use that all the time in CC. The students are being assessed. What did they do good, right? And then what is it that they could work on? So as Wyatt is submitting things, he is getting that feedback. And so it's not just, oh, you got a 93 on this, or a 96, or whatever it was. There are words that go with it, and words to strengthen him. This is what you did well, and this is what you could work on. So just wanted to share that all with you, and yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Lysandra, so we just did a lot of the whys and whats. And I'm giving Lysandra a little extra time, because she's going to give us some hows. And this is where, if you brought your notebook, you want to pull it out and a pen. And she's going to start telling you about transcripts. Here, let me read the question. What do I need to know about transcripts and credits? And what about graduation requirements?
Okay, so we don't have enough time to really get deep, right? So I'm going to give you some really basic things, and I'm going to start with a verse in Scripture. James 2 says that faith without works is dead, right? So you're going to do the work, right? You're going to do all of the work. You're going to follow the guide. You're going to, follow the scope and sequence that CC offers, and that's where the faith aspect comes in, all right? And so in order for you to really lean into the faith, we have to put together a really neat transcript. So there's 3 things that you need for your children, for whatever endeavor that God is calling them to. 1 is a transcript, 2 is a CV or a curriculum vitae, and the 3rd is going to be letters of recommendations. And that is for a student who's going to university, college, trade school, opening up their own business, that exercise is important. It's a celebration of what you have done with your student. It's a celebration for you as parent, and it is a celebration for your student as well. So those three things are, in my opinion, vitally important. None of this that I'm going to tell you is required, but I'm going to tell you things that put you in a position, posture your student for the best success post-high school graduation, okay? Now, there are 10 things that make a stellar transcript, and I want you to say the acronym PROGRESS. Say it. PROGRESS. All right. So I'm going to give you 10 things when you're putting your transcript together that are going to be very, very important. And I lead with this. I do not believe, and maybe Elizabeth can speak to this, or she has kind of spoken to it. I do not believe in going into excessive debt for any kind of degree, period. If you're going to pay for a degree, it needs to have a strong ROI, return on investment. A traditional bachelor's degree does not have a very, very high ROI, so I refuse to pay tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars from anybody's university. And so I want that to be very clear, that when we are writing this transcript, we are writing a transcript that will posture your child for full scholarship, okay? Classical Conversations has done 80 to 90% of the work for you by putting together a masterful program. If you follow the scope and sequence, your transcript will write itself, okay? So, number 1P, practice, progressive, course, rigor, check, done, follow the program. That's it. Do the work, follow the guide. 6 years of challenge, let's just go with 4 years of challenge. Do all 6 seminars. Do all the work to the best of your ability. Maximize your child with all the work that is offered in CC. R, remember, grade scale matters. We talked about grading, right? We're going to talk about the and progress at the very end. Remember that a grade scale matters. You have to have one. The beauty of a program called academicrecords.net, it gives you options and choices, right? So a grade scale is important for your children to learn when they hit challenge 1. That the work that you do has value. There is a number that is going to be attached, and then later on a letter that is going to be attached to that. So introduce your children to that from a very early age. The O, only put on there what is relevant. Don't go adding stuff unnecessarily. Do not put your child's SAT scores or ACT scores on there. You might think that they are awesome, but unless it is a perfect score, someone else has a better score than they do. I promise, okay? Make sure that it is signed. Make sure that you have all of the pertinent information, your name, their name, address, email address, phone number. Once again, if you're using academicrecords.net, all of that information is organic when you set up your transcript. G, give appropriate quality points. That's a hard one. What is a quality point? Quality points are when you take a grade and it has points attached to it. So an F is going to give you 0 quality points, and this leads into your GPA, your grade point average, okay? A D is going to give you 1 quality point. A C is going to give you 3 quality points, or 2 quality points, and on and on and on. And that's what a 4.0 versus a 3.0 versus a 2.0 means, right? So when you're doing quality points, it has also to do with the grading scale that you choose, okay? R, Register for concurrent credit courses. You've got to do them. I don't believe that they are optional. I believe that once you're a student, if you have a child who is an organic CC student who has been in CC from Christendom, like my child who's 3, who was started when she was 3, and she, Lord willing, God please help us get to Challenge 4, right? She will do CC Plus, even if it's 1 or 2 classes. But you've got to do it to provide the P, the progressive course rigor, right? E, examine quality over quantity. There's no need to add anything to this program. Absolutely no need to add anything to this program. Do the scope and sequence. You will get the literary terms in Challenge 2. You will get the vocabulary strewn all over Challenge A through 4. There's no need to add anything to it. If you do as you're told in the guide, and really do it. When you finish Lost Tools of Writing, move into Strunk and White. Move into Office of Assertion. Don't pretend like those are books that are just optional books, right? And it will put your student in a position to make sure that your transcript looks a particular type of way, because when universities are looking at your transcript and you have 10 classes that you've taken in your junior year, their eyebrow raises. Why are you doing that? What is wrong with the program that you've chosen? And I've had those questions before. Why would you add that? Or why would you subtract that? Or why would you divide that? If it's so awesome that you put in all your class descriptions, why would you add that? I had a little bit of a different circumstance with my first student because she did not get all of Challenge, so I had to add some stuff in there. But that's a different circumstance, right? But they will question you. They will ask those questions of you. S, you want to speak a universal language, okay? So what does that mean? It means that we do beautiful things in CC. We do British literature, we do Western cultural history, we do Lost Tools of Writing. People don't understand what that means on a transcript. They understand English 1, right? But you can put a dash and you can put American literature. For English 2, you can put a dash and you can put British literature. But don't forsake speaking the language of the university if that's what God has designed for your student. If you're playing soccer, you got to play their game by their rules. And whatever it is that your child is going into, whatever they're called to, you must play that game. It is not a square peg in a round hole. It is a round peg in a round hole. So you've got to play the game. So speak the universal language of whatever program it is that you're moving into, whether it's university, whether it's trade school, whatever it is that you're doing. S, show your credits, right? The beautiful thing about CC is even though we have 6 seminars, those seminars can be parsed out. You can pull debate out and give credit for that separately, okay? You can pull oral presentation out and give them credit for that separately. You can pull exposition and composition out and you can give them credit for that separately. So be masterful with your credits. And that stuff is on academicrecords.net. We also have parents who have gone through this process. I've gone through it twice. Actually, I've gone through it twice with my own and many other times with other families. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat. And so you can parse out your credits for your student. This is the controversial one that I'm going to go to. It's another S. Slowly put on weight. Ladies, I know there's gentlemen in here, right? This is the time to get fat, ladies, when you're writing up a transcript, and fathers too. Slowly put on weight, W-E-I-G-H-T. And what I mean by that is our students are doing an exponential amount of work, right? The average high school student in a high school class is writing 1 to 3 papers a year. And the room went silent.
Children?
Yeah. Are you all confused, challenge students?
Don't tell the kids.
1 to 3 papers a year. I took advanced placement college credit coursework at a very well-known high school that I am not going to mention the letters of.
What was the matter?
And I wrote 4 papers to get college credit. Our children in Challenge 1, how many did you write in Challenge 1? Like 20 plus. Oh, they changed it? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Taylor. You wrote like 20 papers. Sorry. It doesn't matter. It's double to triple the amount that they're going to write in any given traditional brick and mortar high school setting. Okay? So, you're darn straight, we're going to go ahead and put some weight on that. That's not a regular class. That deserves weight. Okay? And the beautiful part of academicrecords.net, it does it for you. If you choose the right, rubric or whatever, you can choose what you want. Your child can get up to a 6.0 scale. Do it. Absolutely do it. Do it all. If it could be an 8.0 scale, I would do it. They deserve it. They have earned it. Give it to them, right? And my most favorite, this is the always make them win. You are their biggest cheerleader. You will always be their biggest cheerleader. I get tears in my eyes thinking about that. You want to make them win. This world is hard, people. They don't want our children to win, no matter who they are. White, black, brown, purple, orange, yellow, it doesn't matter. They don't want them to win, especially Christian-raised children. You have the opportunity and you have the power to make them win. I'm not saying to cheat. They're going to earn every bit of whatever you put on that transcript. Make them earn it, but make them win. Give them the credit, give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them the grade. Bump them up if they need it. If it's an 89.9, yeah, that's a 90. Come on. In real math, when you're rounding, what are we rounding to? Right? So it's really important that you always make them win. So that's the basis of a stellar transcript. The actual doing, there's a little bit more meat to it, but that's the heart behind a really, really good transcript that is going to yield you college scholarship. I'm going to speak on 2 very quick other things that I know that's being covered elsewhere, and I really wanted to cover that, and we discussed covering that. SAT and ACT, those are standardized tests. So start prepping during sophomore year with Khan Academy. Okay, it's free. It's just as good as the $10,000 program that you can pay for if you really, really wanted to. PSAT is in the junior year. It's really more of a talent contest for scholarship, but it's an abridged version of the SAT. So you want them to do that in their junior year. Just have them sit for it. And like I said, if they're doing Khan Academy their sophomore year, they'll be ready. If they're really leaning into all of the coursework for challenge, they're going to be ready. If they're doing the little vocabulary notebook that a lot of students do not do, the vocabulary is there. It's rich in all of the books that they read. So do it, okay? After they take the PSAT, I always recommend right afterwards, sit for the SAT. It's nice and fresh, you've been working, you've been preparing. That's what I would do, and then you take it multiple times. There is no, super scoring or whatever, they just take the best. If you take it 10 times, they take the best English and they take the best math. It doesn't matter, they no longer super score. And if you just wanna throw the baby out with the bathwater, don't take it at all. Because there are several testing optional schools. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, testing optional now. Wake Forest University, testing optional. I'm talking about some high-level universities. I'm not saying that your children need to go there. Not saying that. But my point is, if they're saying, and these are supposed to be the scholars, right? The people who know everything. If they're saying that, I don't know that we need that to give a good measure, give a good strong measure of a student's ability, don't even bother. There are enough universities, if you choose not to lean in on that your student will grab a full ride scholarship based on merit, based on a really well-written transcript, based on letters of recommendation, based on their body of work, their curriculum vitae. And lastly, and this is probably a very small group of people, but NCAA, these are for my athletes. You need an NCAA ID by junior year to take official visits. If you are a prospect, what does that mean? A prospect is someone who is receiving offers from a university for their craft. Football, baseball, basketball, soccer, NCAA sports. Okay, not arts, but sports. I think that Leah's gonna discuss that. And then there's two things that are important. She's good. I think so. You're not on
She is
now.
Yeah, art scholarship.
Oh,
Yeah. Sorry, I was passing it off. Okay, so to obtain full eligibility, athletes need 10 and 7 and 7 and 10. 10 credits in 7 semesters, and 7 of those credits need to be core classes. Core classes being math, English, science, social sciences. And then you have to fill out your core course worksheets. There's a homeschool packet. All of that stuff is on the NCAA website. And I think that is time.
Ooh, you did perfect. We are really to the minute. Fantastic, ladies. All right, Leah. All right, step on the board for y'all. Actually, before we get to Leah, let me tell you what he's writing on the board. So classicalconversationsplus.com, if you're interested in those concurrent enrollment classes, that's where all of that is found. classicalconversations.com/blog. That's the new website for Classical Conversations, and up at the top, you have 4 choices. You have a start button, and one of those buttons says blog. There are some fantastic articles that I just found about transcripts. Matter of fact, they don't recommend just academicrecords.net. They say there are different ones that you can choose from, and they give you options. So look at some of those articles. I just saw them. Leah just forwarded it to me. I just saw those this week, and was very impressed. And then Lysandra did not mention the CLT test, but that is another test along with the SAT, ACT. A lot of Christian colleges are accepting the CLT test. There is a CC code if you want 25% off this year. It is CC2022. I am having my 10th grader take that for his end of year exam this year. That's good practice. That's something that you can do at your house, and you can administrate it yourself online. So it's an easy test to do at home. All right, Leah, what about Bright Futures and scholarships? Perhaps you'll mention FAFSA. Oh, did I not tell you that one? Can you wing that?
I mean, yeah, I suppose I can wing it. I've done it once, Sandra's done it many times. So yeah, we can wing it between the two of us, I'm sure. We'll wing it. I might actually, at some point, jump over there because what mine's a very technical list. When you're talking about applying for and going through the process of Bright Futures, as Lysandra alluded to, when you're talking about scholarships in general, it generally falls into 2 categories, either merit or talent. Would you? Merit, talent, athletic, all right? Let me tell you right away up front, the scholarships for athletics and all that stuff, they're not as big as people think they are. They can offer you $1,000 and say, we gave you a scholarship, okay? So the vast majority of students that are going into school are stacking their scholarships together. So you need your student to be qualified academically, they need to be qualified in talent, and they need to be qualified in their athletics. And as someone with a CC graduate, he's a huge adjustment going off into college, no matter who you are, right? You're away from home, you're learning all the things, how to do your laundry, by yourself, when to plan it, do this, all this, right? Everything from where to find your meals to laundry and everything. But as a student who came out of CC, who joined CC late, we homeschooled all the way through, but we joined CC late, he has never lacked in his academic skills, all right? So if you're gonna come out and you're gonna prepare your child, and I would say also we had a lot of those tough conversations about faith, and his faith is challenged. My kid goes to a secular university, so if I could nail down those two things by the time he graduates from high school, then he is equipped with academic skills and equipped in skills to defend his faith. That's a little aside there. Like Lysandra said, most of your merit scholarships are proven through achieving something. You've achieved a high score on a test, you've achieved a high grade in a class, you've achieved something, right? So proving for merit, you want to show achievements in certain areas. Talent is proven by showing where your student dove in deep on something that they loved. This is another thing that I was not perfect in my graduation of my student, but I helped him find his thing when he was in high school. Second semester, he is an animation major at Jacksonville University. He loves what he's doing, okay? And the way he went in to get scholarship for from the university for talent, he showed all of the different reels of animations that he put together and coded. He's been doing this from the time he was little with his brother in the free time. My other son, Ethan, is just a writer. He spends his breaks writing. He's got stacks of notebooks, so, you know, that's one of the things. For him, we're looking at how can you enter contests, how can you show that you're submitting your work and you're showing, like, again, it's proving you have a talent in the area, building a portfolio. Look at the schools that your kids are considering, look at what they require to apply, what they require for application to the program. And to enter an art program, you do have to submit a portfolio. So you can't just walk up to them and be like, hey, I want to do animation. You actually have to have a drawing portfolio, so read what their requirements were. He had to give an artist statement of what he felt the core of his work was and all that kind of stuff. They walk you right through how to do that. I'm sure Taylor had to do things for dance as well, because that's, you know, another area of art. Yeah, so as far as, you've got those three categories, and the final thing that I'm talking about this evening is Bright Futures. That one's very technical. If you go to their website, most of you know that's like a scholarship program that's offered to Florida residents. If you want, you can go start by going to their website. It's kind of funny, you can Google it and it should come up, but the actual web address is Florida Student Financial Aid SG, which stands for Scholarships and Grants.org. So Florida Student Financial Aid SG.org. From there, you're going to navigate to a tab that says Bright Futures, Scholarships. They have a number of other grants that your student might, and scholarship that your student might qualify for. But Bright Futures is another tab that's down there on the website. Click on that tab and it's going to give you 3 more things to click on. And this is one of the things where people sort of fatigue out, right? Because you're going to have a tab. The first box is Chapter 1, download the handbook. Are you eligible? Chapter 2, how do you determine and how do you once you're eligible, how do you figure all that out? And then Chapter 3 is how do you keep your eligibility once you're in college, right? So it's a lot of reading, parsing out, figuring out what exactly their requirements are. Their initial eligibility, you're going to find when you come in, is some basic things like you need to be a Florida resident, you have to have either a high school diploma or, get this, be a graduate of a homeschool program. That is listed separately. I think there's some other things like you can't have been convicted of committing crime, just different things like that, because it is a state-provided scholarship. Of course, for homeschoolers, we're considered non-traditional students. So you're gonna look to the chapter and the page that's titled non-traditional student eligibility. And because we're special, we get a whole nother list of requirements. You know how that is, right? I'm actually gonna flip here so that I don't miss any of them. Our first requirement for non-traditional students is that we have to meet the general requirements for Bright Futures, like I said, for residency, those kind of things. You need to fill out the Florida financial aid form. You have to give exam scores. There are minimum scores to meet. I know, I get the boring, run down the list. If you're doing the minimum, the lower level scholarship, the requirement is 1210. I believe the higher one is 1330 now. They move them. So you need to look yearly for your student. Depending on the level at which your student qualifies, you get more aid. The aid is dispersed by the number of credits your student enrolls for in college. So it's a certain amount of dollars per credit that your students enroll for a semester. So two big things you need are exam scores, that minimum score of either the SAT or the ACT, whichever one your student is most, they have the greatest aptitude for. You kind of want to go with that one. As Lysandra said, they will take your best reading and your best math score. You get to mix and match. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that when I first started going through all this stuff. You have to request. It gets all funky when you start submitting stuff too, because you're a homeschool student, so you're not submitting it through your school. But the final requirement is service hours. For the lower level scholarship, you need 75. For the higher level, you need 100. Some things that people get a little bit confused on for service hours are that it can't be anything. There's specific requirements. They don't really want you doing services for a religious institution. So if you're hoping to log all your church service hours and be like, here's my thing, really what they're looking for in students is to gain some idea of civic responsibility. So they want you to find an area in the community that you feel strongly about. They want you to dig in, they want you to see a problem, and they want you to figure out how to address it. You can get community service hours that qualify for political campaign, so they want you to learn about our process of government, right? They have very specific things that they sort of reward for you. Your best option is nonprofit organizations. If your kid loves animals, volunteer in a nonprofit animal shelter, hospitals, educational institutions. You'll need an officially signed letter on the company or the nonprofit organization's letterhead saying that your student completed those hours of service. Helpful so far, hopefully. It's very just like bullet list. The other thing I did skip over on the eligibility is you first want to check that the college that your student is interested in attending is able to receive Bright Futures, because not everyone is. Not everyone qualifies. So that's something that you do need to research before you jump through all these hoops, right? Research whether the school that your student is looking to attend even takes the Bright Futures scholarship monies. The submission process gets a little wonky for us homeschoolers again. It actually goes through our county home education office. One of your requirements as a non-traditional student, a homeschool student, is that you are in good standing. What's that? Oh, that you're in good standing with your home education office. So you, and I actually got my information kicked back. We don't have your son registered. I was like, okay, this isn't good. But fortunately, I followed my friend Mrs. Russell's recommendation when I was applying to colleges. One of the things that I pulled from the home education office before I sent my exit letter was a letter of good standing from the board on the home education office on that letterhead. So they're gonna make you jump through hoops and they're gonna try to kick you back. I will tell you that. And you're gonna have to fight tooth and nail for whatever you're gonna get, okay? SAT scores have to be sent to a state repository. They have instructions for all of this. The other thing I learned when I submitted through the process was we put in the application for the Florida financial aid, but I didn't realize, because it says to do that first, and then it says to submit your test scores and to send your community service hours to your homeschool education office. I did not realize that they actually wanted that process flipped. They wanted you to send your community service hours to the home education office and send the test scores to the state repository, then put in the application, and then they were going to be looking for those things within there. But like I said, if I was taking that list in order, which I did, I got kicked back. Again, it was a lot of hoop jumping. You will want to go to the website if you are interested in this. You're going to need the notes. You're going to need to walk through, keep a little checklist to help you through the process. And reach out to people in your community that kind of know or have ideas. Persistence. Don't be afraid to email them, call them, talk to them, have conversations, because your students do qualify and they are eligible for these monies.
Ladies, thank you so much. So we're on a schedule, and now we're a little bit behind, but I said, if you have any questions that we didn't answer, save it for the end. This is the end. Does anybody have a question that we can quickly answer? Yes.
Diplomas. What kind of diplomas have you assigned your kids, and tell me everything about it?
Easy peasy, homeschool.com or whatever you order.
You can scribble something on a piece of paper, honestly. And I'm not being facetious. You know, I want you to understand that that is a made-up document that you can make up on your own. Like I said, I've seen people, I'll just tell you, for Vanderbilt University, I wrote 2 lines. My son has graduated, Lysandra Russell. That was it, okay? And that was Vanderbilt.
Colleges that require a certain type of diploma?
No.
Transcripts.
Like, it's the transcript is,
Transcripts are a lot more important than just.
that is the document. That is the document. The actual graduation piece of paper can be anything. I mean, it can be, like I said, I wrote 2 lines for my daughter. She has 3 different diplomas, one from PSG, one from FPEA. You know, we wrote it on the wall. Like, she wanted the whole deal, right? So everybody's different.
I think my daughter has 3 also.
Yeah.
I also ordered one from HSLD.
There you go.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Cover,
There you
and
go.
it had
Yeah.
our name, and then we signed.
And I actually-
Something that looks beautiful like that, and it looks just like they're all.
I actually have a question that someone emailed me, and I failed to ask it. Let me do it this publicly. Can an employer refuse to accept a homeschool transcript and require your student to get a GED?
No.
We got someone on a hiring committee. Yes.
So, yeah, for sure. I work for a government agency. We require a GED for homeschool students.
So I have an article from another state through the HSLDA, and what happened in that other state was the Homeschool Legal Defense Association went to bat for them, and they dropped the requirement. So my guess is that it could be fought.
Right.
Do you know if anybody's ever tried to fight it with HSLDA?
Nobody's trying to fight it as far as I know.
Okay, because in the state of Florida, I mean, it says that a homeschool diploma is acceptable.
So the definition of GED, it's a high school equivalency. So it's stating that you have not graduated from high school, whereas with a homeschooler, they have graduated from high school. So that's a legal issue.
Yeah.
And it's not legal to require, I mean, I'm not, you know, but it's not legal to require someone to then, you know, go and do that again. So that's, you know.
And I have the article right here if you want to see it. I came prepared. Okay, I saw a couple more hands real quickly. Alice.
Can we use the Florida preprint for CC Plus?
I don't think so.
No, it is, it's billed directly with, you know, as a family, you're signing up your son and then you're paying for, or daughter, excuse me, just right now it's the son. But you're paying directly.
You're paying directly to, into CC Plus for that, and $500 for the class, so, yeah.
You could use a 529 or an education savings account if you have one of those. A few years ago, they passed the law where you can start to use those for secondary education. So for some clients that have too much in those accounts, like the doctor client I was mentioning earlier, we've been draining money from those to pay for American Heritage, so.
Yes.
So I was on the CC Plus website, I was on there and I went back, and now it says that the deadline is April like 3rd, or not the deadline, enrollment starts.
Yes, enrollment started April 4th
Right.
for the fall. So you can begin going in if you have a Challenge 2 student, Challenge 3, Challenge 4.
Is
You
it
can,
like, because I've also seen that it says, full.
Oh, that's a great question. So when we were up at Southeastern a couple weeks ago, now that we're all of our courses are now through Southeastern. Sometimes that happened with our other partner college that we had. But when we were at Southeastern, they said, look, if your students, obviously there are deadlines, right?
Yeah.
But we will find a place, so it's open now. I know, but I know it's so funny, right? It just opened up and we're talking about the fall.
Rachel?
So I know their heart is to have spaces for our kids.
Do you
be
have
able
to be
take them.
enrolled in a community in order to sign up for
Great
CC Plus
question.
class?
Yes, you are a homeschool family. You are a member in a community. And that is part of being able to be part of CC Plus.
Okay.
Yeah. And as a parent, if you are doing the AA program, the bachelor's, the master's, the PhD, as long as your family is a member within there, or you have graduated your children, then we are eligible as parents. Okay.
When you say challenge B, someone that's starting challenge B or just completed challenge B?
For CC Plus, starting in Challenge 2,
I'm so sorry.
2, 3, and
Okay.
4. Yeah. Yes.
When you navigated the more traditional dual enrollment through Broward County, any feedback on doing that? Which I know, I think that's often still for free for homeschool kids in Broward. Have you done that or have any experience?
I have done that.
Yeah, we
I have 2 girls that did not go through classical conversations, and so we did dual enroll them through Broward College. And yes, it is still an option. It's, I'm happy to not be doing that with my next kid. I'm happy to be able to give them a Christian education concurrently with CC. But it is an option. It is there.
Do you want to add anything, Gina? Gina did it too.
Yeah, we did also with Brown College, we did with Bible College and Palm Beach Atlantic.
The one, I will say if you're in CC, sorry, I haven't personally done it, but I had friends who were in CC with me who had their children do it, and they went in really strong, and what they ended up with was very watered down. There were things that, because they were taking 2 different programs, so there were things that were in Challenge that they ended up losing out on it because they weren't quite doing that because there were these other deadlines they were trying to make, and the workload, at least for that particular student, it was a lot. And so the mother, looking back, they got what the product they wanted, right? But the process of what they missed, the parts, it kind of fell flat. But that was her opinion.
Well, Sandra, I love how you say free ain't always free.
Yeah. Right? There's a cost there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of mature themes that our children are exposed to because they're exposed to lots of different ages. Our children that are under 18 doing the dual enrollment. So there are mature themes that are happening within those classes. Now we do talk in our classes. We read a lot of different things and have big discussions in our challenge classroom. But we always have it with a leader that has Christian biblical worldview, and we're taking it back to Scripture to say, well, if we're looking at the Scarlet Letter or something else that we're reading, well, what is that in light of Scripture? And there may be certain conversation that happens, but we're always bringing it back there. So there is definitely a difference.